to do with it. I get to go.
Boys, could you clear a path, please?
Well, yeah, who is McIntosh?
Look, Warner's Bailey. All set, Dad.
Hello everyone, back to Chanel Story Friends. This time we are going to tell a story about the 90s film with the family comedy genre, entitled Blank Check, which was released in 1994. It tells the story of an elementary school boy who earns $1 million, at a young age and still young. What will he use the money for? And how will he get the money? It begins with a convict named Quick who escapes from prison. He enters an empty warehouse to retrieve a suitcase of $1 million stolen from him.
Did you miss me?
Elsewhere, a child named Preston was always bullied by his two older brothers Raph and Damien. Even his father Fred also let Preston's room become a place to start a business for his two brothers. It didn't stop there. His school friends also liked to bully Preston, including the naughty boy named Book. That day Preston and his school friends had a vacation to the United States branch tour to celebrate Booch's birthday. But because Preston was not given much money by his father, in the end he couldn't go on roller coaster rides, and exciting rides else.
Stow the pesto! Preston! Come with us! Just kidding! Awesome! Yeah!
When he arrived at Preston's house, he protested. Why didn't his father give him a lot of money? Like the others, it turns out that Fred has very strong principles. He doesn't spoil his children at all, where his 3 children have to try hard to get money. Even though he's still young like Preston, at least he has to be diligent in saving, he said. Using Preston's investment application, he also checks how long it takes him to get $1 million. If he invests only $11, it turns out that the result takes 342,000 years, really long time. The next morning he quickly met the director of a bank named Biderman, who had also worked with him in the money laundering business, quickly asked him to exchange the stolen money with a new serial number, because his money had been tracked by the police. Initially the Biderman had repented of the evil world refused, but because Quickly wanted to threaten to kill his family, he was forced to say yes. Quickly said tomorrow at 1 p.m., there would be a person named Just who would take the money, bringing a check for $1 million.
Juice. We'll be here in exactly 24 hours, the old days. You give him the cash, unmarked, send him on his way. That's where you come in, old buddy. I want new bills.
On the other hand, Preston, who got a check from his grandmother for only $11, planned to save at a bank, which happened to be the director. He was amazed and fell in love with a bank teller woman named Shay. Unfortunately, Preston could not save because the minimum balance for opening an account was $200. Preston was finally going home, but suddenly Buck, who happened to be passing by, took a check from his grandmother, and Preston immediately chased him. A chase ensued, until finally Preston's bicycle was accidentally hit by a car that was quickly retreating. Luckily Preston was still able to avoid it, and because many people saw what happened, Quickly was forced to compensate for Preston's bicycle. But when Quickly signed the check paper, and was about to write down the nominal, suddenly a police car came, which obviously scared him. Then he handed Preston a blank check, which had his signature on it.
I don't know what to do with it. I get to go.
As a result of his broken bicycle, his parents scolded him and he was ordered not to go out that day. That night Preston accidentally wrote the $1 million blank check, hoping that his dream of having a lot of money, owning a home, avoiding inflation, could come true. The next day Preston returned to the same bank, and tried to exchange his $1 million check. The teller woman who saw Jack clearly thought it was joking. Was it true that a child like you had this much money, she said, but to make sure this teller woman also reported to Mr. Director of the Biderman, if there is a child who wants to take $1 million with his check, the Biderman who see Quick's signature there and the exact same amount of money, and coincidentally it is 1 o'clock in the afternoon, think that Preston is Quick's messenger, whose name is Just. The money was immediately taken from the safe and put in Preston's bag.
How did you run into Mr. Quickly?
You ran into me.
When Preston was going home with a bag full of money, he collided with the real Jus. Of course he didn't suspect anything because Preston was just a child. After that Jus met Biderman and he was very surprised when he found out that the kid was not the real Jus. Soon the news reached quickly. He was very emotional to know that the money was actually given to a child, and at that time they also went to look for Preston. Meanwhile Preston immediately bought a semi castle house, which was very, very expensive, with following the auction by phone, and using the pseudonym that is Macintosh. How happy Preston is because he not only has his own room, but now he has a magnificent castle for his afternoon naps. Not forgetting that Preston rents a luxury limousine along with a driver named Henry. To go around and spree. After being satisfied wasting money, Preston went home and accidentally met Shay. Preston said that the limousine car belonged to his boss named Macintosh, and tomorrow he would return to meet Shay at the bank to open an account. After Preston left, it turned out that Shay was a spy from the FBI undercover as a teller at a bank to uncover cases of money laundering from Biderman and also quickly.
Is that him?
No, some kid who came into the bank today.
The next day, Preston beautified his castle with unimportant items. Soon his father, who happened to be passing by, asked what Preston was doing there. He said, "Oh this sir, I have now moved house, and worked for Mr. Macintosh." After that Preston also played all day with his private driver Henry.
Boys, could you clear a path, please?
Well, yeah, who is Macintosh?
Who's paying? All set, Dad.
On the other hand, Shay met a customer who made a big profit, because a lot of his merchandise was bought by a rich man named Macintosh. Shay also remembered that Macintosh was Preston's boss, and when the money was checked it turned out to have an FBI hologram. Shay concluded that Machinto's too included in the money laundering gang. Not long after that Shay went straight to Preston's residence, to meet with Macintosh. Preston also reasoned that Macintosh was always busy meeting every day, and instead he would accompany Shay, on the grounds that he took care of all of Macintosh's finances. As an FBI spy Shay agreed, because who knows, he could find a lot of information about who Macintosh really was, because that night they were going on a date. Preston was dressed neatly and smelled good. To impress Shay, at dinner Preston gave a Swarovski necklace as a gift, to admit that it was from the Macintosh, but Shay refused, because the gift was too expensive for him. After that they continued to eat super hot McD1, so they could chat more casually, and continued playing with water to the point that it made Preston even more in love with Shay. At the same time, quickly, Jus and Biderman, who kept looking for Preston, finally found him, who was with Shay. Seeing that, Preston immediately took Shay back to the car and quickly ran away from there.
What? Okay, the limo!
On the way home, Shay thanked Preston, because he had never felt such excitement as before when he was little. Then Preston invited him to a Macintosh birthday party on Friday, so they could have fun again. The next day Preston was back playing at his house, which this time had employed his two older brothers, even though he had a lot of wealth. But in time Preston got bored, because he didn't have friends. Then when Preston saw the children playing in the park, suddenly a car came quickly, which immediately chased after him continues to happen, and finally Preston manages to escape, by escaping through a stage. Because Preston was so difficult to catch, quickly and the others came to Bucked to get info on Preston's home address. On the other hand, the Macintosh birthday party had started. The guests arrived while Shay and other police officers intended to arrest Macintosh. Quickly, Biderman and also Jus there, unknowingly, because he spends too much. Preston's balance, which was originally $1 million, is now $300 left. After that his father Fred came to meet Macintosh, and Preston quickly turned his chair around so he wouldn't get caught. Fred said, if that day also Preston's son's birthday, and asked permission to Macintosh to send his son home. Fred also regretted his attitude towards Preston, for educating him too hard, and rarely cared about him. Hearing the words of his father, Preston could only be silent and cry, because what he had been needing was not money, but the affection of the closest people.
Today is Preston's birthday. Send him home a little early. I'm afraid he's missing out on his childhood. I pushed him too hard, especially Preston.
Daddy!
In front of all the guests, Preston said that Mr. McIntosh would not come to his birthday party, and all guests were welcome to go home right away. Now Preston was alone in his house. Then soon there was a knock on the door, which turned out to be 3 friends. Quickly asked where McIntosh was, and Preston also admitted that McIntosh's name was just a pseudonym, and all the money quickly had been spent in just 6 days. Quickly got angry and they immediately chased Preston, who fled via water boom from his office like Home Alone. Preston pranks Jus and Biderman with his games.
It's time for a little batting practice.
Until finally only one was left. He kept looking for Preston, who was hiding under the table, but in the end it was Quickly who was caught in a trap, and made him be tricked like this. When Preston was about to be arrested, suddenly Shay and the FBI and police came to imprison the 3 of them for money laundering, fraud, and grand theft.
You tell these guys I'm Macintosh.
Macintosh. Don't you know Papa Macintosh? From here, man. I'm just rolling down the street.
After that, Fred and his family came, because they were worried about Preston's condition. Meanwhile, Preston was still having fun talking alone with Shay, and Shay gave Preston the opportunity to approach him in 6 years. When he grew up, Shay kissed him as a form of final farewell. Then talked not long after his father came to pick him up. At the end of the film, the entire Preston family was seen giving him a birthday surprise. And Preston finally realized that there is nothing more expensive than the love of the people around him.
Got everything.